your sister, you want to give preferential, it's your brother, we found against it is highly found against in a civil service. Then we also talk about sabotage. Government is trying to carry out good plans for the people. Because you are privy to know what government intends to do, you go back or you go around trying to stab government on the back. You are sabotaging, you are destroying government property. That is sabotage. No, it's a serious misconduct. Then sexual harassment. Sexual harassment. An officer who does that is that is very serious misconduct. Then we talk about rape. 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 You trying to take advantage of a lady whose consent was never sought. Sometimes you couldn't get the consent of the lady, but then it could be as a result of perhaps she was at gunpoint or her life was even being threatened. So she submits herself. She gives you the consent. That is also rape. That is also rape. Then in any case, I don't know about guys. If guys are also being raped, is a talk for another day. Is a talk for another day, because we cannot be talking about ladies being raped and we're not, because I want to believe that what happens to a man, what happens to a lady, should also happen to a man. But it's a discussion for another class. Then we also talk about cyber crime. People are going to it big time. It's even some officers. You're going to cyber crime. It's serious misconduct. Then membership of courts. You must not be in any court for you to be a civil servant. Once you're a membership of court and it has been established that you're a membership of court, your stay in the service is just limited. Now, when we talked about appointment, we're talking about conditions for appointment. Now, for you to be appointed, you are supposed to be clear that you were never convicted before. You are not a member of a court. We talked about this in our previous class, in one of our previous videos. Then again, partisanship. As a civil servant, you must not engage in partisan or political activities. That does not mean you must not vote. You must have your voter card. You must go register for your voter card, because you have the right to cast your ballot. You have the right to vote. So it does not translate because you have not registered to have your PVC as such. You want to go into politics and you still want to be a civil servant. No. If you want to go into politics, you are good and fine. The rule says if you want to go into politics, you resign. And you must not be contesting the position in a week's time and you come to tell us you are resigning today. No. You must resign 3 months. That's what the rule says. 3 months before the election begins. Before the election begins. You resign 3 months. So no officer is allowed to partake in political activity. It is a serious misconduct. Then financial embarrassment. Financial embarrassment. So many officers, look at the times we are now. So many officers, they've been caught up in the web of financial embarrassment. When we talk about financial embarrassment, there are certain things that makes an officer to be in financial embarrassment. One of the things, let me make this very well, clear this very well. When you say an officer is in financial embarrassment, one of the conditions for you to tell if an officer is in financial embarrassment is that the debt, or let me use the word unsecured debt. Let me use that word unsecured. Don't mean unsecured like the officer has collected. Of course, when you go to bank to collect loan, there must be collateral. Where there is no collateral, you are getting money from somewhere. There is no collateral. There is no sign of commitment. It is unsecured. Where the officer's unsecured debts or liabilities as the case may be, is 3 times more than the officer's emolument. Okay, let's break it down. An officer receives his total emolument for a month is about 20 naira. Let's use this. But it has been discovered that this officer is in a financial embarrassment and the total debt this officer is owing is about 100 naira. Now you have 20 times 3 is 60 naira. But what he is owing is about 100 naira. Despite that 100 naira is even more than 3 times of what. It means that in the next 5 months, the officer has nothing to fall back on. yet he's working. How do you expect such an officer to think, to carry out his activity? How? It's not possible now. So such officer is in what we call financial embarrassment. Again, when an officer is declared judgment debtor, what is a judgment debtor? A judgment debtor simply means it has been declared that this officer is owing and is supposed, or he has to pay the debt which he or she is owing to a judgment creditor. You know, the judgment debtor is the person that is owing, and the judgment creditor is the person to whom the money is to be paid to. So when an officer is adjudged or convicted to be a judgment debtor, that officer is, in quotes, tend to be in financial embarrassment. That is a misconduct. This is different from bankruptcy, though they may be similar. Bankruptcy is also financial misconduct. Bankruptcy simply means financial recklessness. You are not prudent as to the way you spend money. You are so reckless about the way money is being spent around you. That is bankruptcy. Then bribery. Bribery. You want to have your way. Bribery must not be money. It must not be money. Okay, I can choose to give up my position for you to come in so that I get what I want to get. That is bribery. And bribery is a two-way, the giver and the taker. If both the giver and the taker are both officers, it means they've committed what we call misconduct. So bribery could be position, it could be money, it could be kind, it could be whatever. So that is also a misconduct. So these are the things that constitute what we call serious misconduct. However, there could be others. There could be others. There could be others which also constitute misconduct. Okay, let's look at this now. Prohibition of private practice. The civil service, okay, you are a journalist, yes, and you work with NTA or BON or Radio Nigeria. Okay, because you are a journalist and you are a full-time employed civil servant with the government, you now decide to go open your own, set up your own whatever. Fine. If for whatever reason you want to set up your own whatever, you come to the government, write officially that you want to set up. Private practice is prohibited in a civil service. However, that does not mean that certain officers cannot go into private practice. Yes, certain officers can, but with the permission. There must be permission from the government for you to go into such practice. And those officers that can only do that are the medical officers. The medical officers. Then the lecturers, the law lecturers. Like you have, because some lecturers, you see them also in court. Yes, they are allowed to also do that. Then you have some officers now who are now in IT. Some officers who are in IT, they are also allowed. Then again, officers who are in agriculture, who are into agriculture. Like some states, normally office, the work days for the week is Mondays to Fridays. Some states will say, okay, please, officers, you can take off Friday and go to your farm. Yes, it's allowed. Some states, they do it. So please, don't come to work, go to your farm, because you are making the nation to be self-sufficient in food production, which is very good anytime. But then as the process is being abused, when officers are asked to go to farm on Friday, that is when you see them traveling all the country, traveling every, but you can also, is allowed, the civil service gives permission for people to be employed in private. These four profession I've just called now, they are allowed. Then it is also prohibited as a civil servant to be given a chieftaincy title. Because you have the money, you want to become a chief, no problem. We don't have a problem. Service does not have a problem. You want to become the chief of your kingdom, of your village, the service does not have a problem. If you must do that, you leave and go and do that. However, there are some chieftaincy titles that are through inheritance. Like there are some traditional titles that are through inheritance, like the overship of Benin Kingdom. We learned it is through inheritance. And if a civil servant who is heir, Okay, take for instance, the then Oba of Benin, who assumed the throne in 1970, was it 1979 78? Oba Kezua was a civil servant. We learned he was a civil servant. But he was already known as heir to the throne because it was through inheritance. So it is known to government that this man, through inheritance, is going somewhere. So that is allowed. But you formally make it known to the service that you are to become so times so where through inheritance. But you cannot come and say because it is not inheritance, because you have the money, you want to become chief in your village. The commission frowns against it. Again, in the course of carrying out your duty, you are not supposed to take bribe. You are not supposed to take gifts. No, you don't take gifts from anybody. You are doing your responsibility as a civil servant. You are not supposed, it's a misconduct. Taking gifts, whether cash, kind, or whatever, is a misconduct. If you must take it, it has to be submitted. What you are given, you present it back, you take it back to the commission. In the course of me doing my duty, this young man appreciated us with this or that for propriety's sake. But to take gifts or cash in the course of carrying out your responsibility is against the civil service, is a misconduct. Yes, as we talked about, as we said before, yes, gifts, you should be careful on how you handle gift while carrying out your primary responsibility as an officer. If it is necessary, please, whatever gift, whether in cash or kind, that is given to you because of carrying out your responsibility, it's always advisable that you report to the commission, bring it back to the commission. Bring it back to the commission. Very, very necessary. Now, let's look at what discipline is. What is discipline? Because when you don't have misconduct, definitely you cannot have a discipline. If there are no erring officer, there cannot be disciplinary measures. Now, what is discipline? What is discipline? It refers to rules or regulations and actions taken in accordance with any law. Where you have law, the rules taken to correct behavioral issues and misconduct. Where there are behavioral issues, where there are misconduct, when you want to correct it, discipline comes in. That is what is meant by discipline. Now, in Federal Civil Service of Nigeria, there are procedures for this. That an officer has heard is not enough for him or her to be dismissed or whatever. There are procedures. Now, that is what we're going to look at. What are the procedures for carrying out discipline? Now, when it has been observed that an officer has heard or has they found wanting in whatever nature the offense is, it is only proper that the superior officer should be notified. When the superior officer is notified, the superior officer will not call the attention of the subordinates, which is the officer who has committed the crime or has alleged to have committed the crime, will not be called upon. It depends on the nature of the crime which he or she, or the offense which he or she has committed. If it's a very minor one, you could issue what we call verbal warnings, or you could advise the officer, please, it has been brought to my attention that you did this, you did that, or you didn't do this. Please, it is minor. In any case, please don't let it get to the next level, because if it does, some other things may follow. You advise. Now, there's what we call inefficiency, which is omission, series of omission, which could accumulate to inefficiency on the part of the officer. When that is noticed, you give a verbal warning 3 times. If the officer does not change, you now issue what we call a query or a preliminary letter. Now, it could be seen as, query could be seen as, if you don't want to call it query, you call it preliminary letter. The query you are giving the officer is not a dismissal letter. It's to call the attention of the officer, noting the section which he or she has violated. You have to quote the section. it has been brought to my knowledge that you have violated rules, so. You put the rule he or she has violated there, and you also let the officer know why disciplinary actions or action will not be taken against the officer. The officer should exonerate himself by replying, and that reply should have a time bound. But you are writing the officer to reply does not mean the officer should just go home with the query and sleep overnight or sleep for 1 year. No, he has time bound to reply the query. If the officer has replied the query, we're talking about procedure now in handling discipline. If the officer has replied the query and the superior officer feels that the officer has exonerated himself, the issue can the issue will not go beyond that position. But if the superior officer feels that that query, the response, the officer has not exonerated himself or herself, the superior officer will now escalate the issue to the director of human resources that this officer has committed this and this query was given, but the officer could not exonerate himself or herself. At this point in time, it now depends on the grade level which the officer is. Is the officer on grade level 3? Is the officer on grade level 7? If you remember, we are talking about junior staff committee. We said junior staff committee headquarters, junior staff committee local, senior staff committee, right? I will give categories which these committees they cover. Now, if the officer is on a particular grade level, that committee, let's say the officer is on grade level 12, the matter will now be referred, perhaps, to the senior staff committee to look into it. They will not look into it. Remember, the senior staff committee is being headed by the chief accounting officer of NAMD, the executive officer of NAMD, and those the senior staff committee. When the senior staff committee goes through it and discovers that okay, this young man, the query and everything that emanated from this query is enough for this issue not to proceed. The matter is at that point stopped. However, reference will be made. Okay, they will write back to the officer, and the officer is expected to write back acknowledging that he has received the letter that okay, so such offenses they decided not to take it beyond a particular level. In any case, if the senior staff committee after sitting discovers that the issue cannot be stopped at that particular position, the matter is now being taken further. The senior staff committee headed by the PS or the executive officer or the DG will now come up with what they call board of inquiry. The board of inquiry is now being set up. That board of inquiry that is set up is made up of a minimum of 3 persons. Perhaps there could be votes so that the vote will not be split evenly. There could be votes, not odd. 3 persons to make up that committee. And those 3 persons that will make up the committee, it will be dependent on 1, the nature of the offense. 2, the status of the officer. I don't know if the status of, you cannot bring in somebody who has committed an offense on grade level 12. Let me say grade level 12, and you're not bringing somebody on a grade level 12 to be part of the board of inquiry. It will not be proper. So again, the head of the department of that officer will not be part of that committee, so that judgment will not be biased. It's completely neutral people that perhaps those that do not have affiliation with the officer. Now that board of inquiry, they will now sit, look at issues, make recommendations. The recommendations will not depend if they are to take the matter further. If after looking through the recommendations, because whatever recommendations they are looking at, they are taking it back to senior staff committee. Now, once it has been estrayed, the recommendations have been estrayed, and the board of the office now, the board of the commission of the minister, and discovers that it is not necessary to dismiss the officer, but certain actions can be taken. Such actions will be taken. When it has to do with dismissal at this point in time, the board will now approve. And again, the senior staff committee, headed by the accounting officer, does not have the power to remove officer on grade level 7 to 13. Let's not forget. They don't have that power. The power is purely vested in the Federal Civil Service Commission. They can discipline, but when it comes to removal, they make reference to Federal Civil Service Commission. But from six below, the power is rightly vested in them. So that is how the procedure for disciplinary measures. Now, all these are supposed to take place within 60 days, but however, I don't think that is followed. Because you have time frame, this, that. Now, when all these are going on, it is expected that where the officer can be asked where the board of inquiry is, whenever they have sitting, they can invite the officer who has committed the offense to come and present if there are any evidence, any materials, any document showing that yes, the officer can be called upon to present the document to the officer. Oga, this is why, or madam, this is why such things are taken against you. Are you aware of this? Are you aware of this? The officer as well will be allowed to make representations in the course of these processes, because you cannot just shut him off. No, the officers will be invited. Come and make presentations. He will be allowed to make presentations. If he has other documents, he will be allowed to bring in those documents. Now, when it has been established that the officer has done one or two or three and four, but should not be dismissed, measures will be given. But when it has been established, it has done more than that, measures will still be given. Whichever side it goes to, definitely measures will always be given. It could be in the favor of the officer, it could be against the officer. It all depends. But at this stage where it has gotten to, definitely, you will definitely know one or two things that the officer may not be palatable for the officer will definitely come up. So this is just the foundational procedure for carrying out disciplinary action against an officer. That an officer has heard is not enough for him or her to be dismissed without hearing. There must be fair hearing. There must be fair hearing. Again, we also have what we call tribunal of inquiry. Tribunal of inquiry is normally set up by government. Now, when tribunal of inquiry sets up, when government sets up tribunal of inquiry, this time around, it has to do with judge, court, lawyers handling the case. Now, whatever recommendation that comes out of that tribunal goes back to the Federal Civil to the Commission. When it comes back to the Commission looks at the recommendation.